Welcome into the I-80 Boys second podcast. I'm your host, Christian Hunt, and joining me, as always, the co-host, Chris Vaca. Guys, we're excited to get into this today. Chris, what's going on over there, buddy?
Well, not much. I think you need to you do the introduction and say that you're like Jared Lorenzen now. I mean, this is the thing instead of Christian Hunt. I mean, you got to come up with something catchy, bro, because I've been comparing you to Jared Lorenzen. You said you were a high school quarterback. I just want to hear it out there, bro.
I think you might be right. Hold on now. Hold on one second.
I'll just give you shit, bro.
1 second here.
Yes.
I've been known to dabble. We said in the last show, we do resemble a little Jared Lorenzen. I mean, if he was, I think he was a little heavier than me though.
He was, but I love it, man. I mean, I just, it's kind of funny. I got a story to start this off. So the first time I met Christian was at a wedding in our family. If you don't know, Christian married my cousin. And I heard this kid was from Georgia. My dad had met you previously or whatever. And my dad's like, yeah, dude, I saw some highlight tapes of this kid. He was like a really good quarterback down in Georgia. And I'm thinking like this dude might be like, 5'10", 5'11", 200 pounds, $190, could run. Maybe you could. And, I meet Christian. I don't know how big you were at that time, Christian. I'm not saying you're a big dude, but you are a big guy. But I was like, damn. I was like, this dude guy's got a full sleeve. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? Talks with that Southern accent, dude. Crack me up, bro. But yeah, now I gotta call you Jared Lorenzen 2.0. So
hey, that's all good. There's really two people in this world, Chris. I mean, there's people that, and this is how I judge my life. There's people that watch my 600-pound life, and you either fall into one of two categories. Okay, you either say I'm going to make some changes to my life and my lifestyle, or you say, all right, motherfucker, I got a goal and I got to beat 600 pounds. One of these days, we're going to get there. And I might push Jared Lorenzen there, a little bit. So yeah, let's kind of get into it a little bit here, Chris. In the last episode, we went back and started breaking down some film, and one of the things I think we really saw was, we were talking about Colorado a little bit when we were kind of going through Nebraska's schedule, and we kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent there. And, I know you thought probably the same way as I did. Let's look at breaking them down. So kind of with that, let's kind of let you jump out and take the lead here. And what do you think Deion Sanders has got going on in Colorado this year?
Okay. I'm going to say it. I know on the last podcast, I probably sounded like a dick rider for Colorado and Deion, but I just, like I said, I truly feel this guy's got a buzz about him. Here's the thing I didn't throw in there. Colorado went 1-11 last year. I believe, right, Christian? I think they were 1-11, something like that.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, it was 1-11.
Okay. There's only one way to go. I mean, truly, let's be honest. So they're going to be better. You know my thoughts on the Pac-12. I think they're soft. I think they've been soft for a long time as far as there's a few teams you could scatter in there the last, 20 years that I thought were really good teams, the USC teams. A couple of those Oregon teams weren't bad, but they got their asses kicked in a bowl game. But I think he's going to create enough buzz. He's got, a top 30 recruiting class this year. I know his son's at quarterback, as I said. I see them, if you want to give me just a record off the rip from what I've looked at so far, and I think you're going to pull it, or you get the transfer portal and all that up there. But I think they can go 7-5, 6-6. And I mean, that's not a stretch, but from 1-11 to 6-6, 7-5, that's a crazy good record. I did predict them to beat Nebraska, by the way. One reason why, as I said last week, was because it's early in the year. I think Colorado placed TCU off the rip this year. I think that'll be a really highly watched game just because of, Deion being at Colorado, TCU coming off that ass whooping that Georgia threw on them. As you say, their second string, maybe. So I think there's going to be a lot of buzz around Colorado this year. I do think that they definitely improve, which is not a stretch by any imagination. So with the kids they're bringing in, I think they got a top corner in that class. I believe they obviously got the Sanders' as quarterback, or his son's quarterback, and they also got like a couple other guys that came with him from Jackson State. So like they're going to be, I think they'll be okay. But like you mentioned, and you kind of slowed my roll in that podcast about Colorado, they still got a lot of other kids off that 1-11 team. I mean, they couldn't run the ball last year. God, they were miserable last year. So I like I said, 6-6, 7-5 is where I'm kind of at. I'll let you have at it here.
Yeah, I think, it got me thinking, and I realized, hey, and look, I don't care. I will sit here and I will just tell you when I, have probably been a little wrong about some stuff. I'll be the first one to tell you. I might have been a little bit off on Colorado and what the expectations are. I mean, they've got a really good team, and they do have, I looked at it. They got some 3-stars. They got a lot of 3-stars in that transfer portal. Some guys that kind of had played at other places, and were kind of backups or played a little bit elsewhere. Smaller divisions and stuff like that. I mean, right now, just looking at who all they've got out of the transfer portal. They pulled Travis Hunter, who was the number 1 player I think last year. He was a cornerback out there. They've got, I'm not even going to try to pronounce this kid's name, no disrespect, but he was a 4-star tight end who played at Arkansas State, it looks like. Then you get Shador Sanders, who you've talked about. You're pretty high on him. He's, pretty elite quarterback, if you want to say so. I think he's pretty electric. And then, Jimmy Horn, and, who played over at UCF. I mean, again, he's a pretty good wide receiver. And then lastly, Mr. Kennedy here, again, I'm not going to try to pronounce his first name, played at Alabama as a linebacker there. So they've got some pieces. I was looking at, they signed the 30th recruiting class, which is actually pretty surprising to me. They out-recruited some pretty damn good schools there.
They did, and that's where, not to interrupt you, but they've done a good job. I believe Nebraska's at 23rd or somewhere in that realm right now, depending on what website you go to. But yeah, man, I truly do think Colorado is going to be, I don't want to say like legit on a national landscape, but they're going to create a lot of buzz, man. Deion has been all over ESPN. He's been on multiple, shows and stuff talking, man. They're going to create a lot of buzz. And with that TCU first game is kind of cool. You know what I mean? With the ass whooping they took, TCU does lose a lot of people to the draft. They lose a lot off that team, but I think that'll be probably one of the, it might be the biggest game week 1 college football. Be honest with you. I know Colorado hasn't done shit, but that'll be up there.
That's going to be, that's a game too. Like if you're looking at who to bet on it, I think TCU might actually be favored in that game, when the line comes out. But I've got just a really strong feeling that Colorado, I could see it either way in that game. Honestly, I could. With them losing Duggan and a lot of those players like we talked about, they could take a pretty big step back. And I think there's also that psychological effect too. Last time they took the field on a national stage, they're either going to come out and they're going to play really pissed off and ready to go because of that, or they're going to kind of come out and there's like a psychology thing. Sometimes when you get embarrassed like that, it can take a while to kind of get back, right in there. But yeah, I think the other thing too is, with Deion and them, you look at the class they signed another, 5-star cornerback out of this class. They got, a pretty good 4-star running back. He was the number 11 ranked running back. They've got, again, another wide receiver out of Georgia, a Louisiana wide receiver. They've got some edge players, I mean, they're kind of doing some stuff. Again, they're going to be competing, but I think the big thing is, when I watched some video, some videos to see who's projected, and I think they'll still get more people, more players transferring in as after spring and all that stuff. And I think, the hard part of it is, you've got to get that production in there. I think production in college football, sometimes, it can outweigh talent. If you've got a guy that's played a ton of football, I mean, you look at Iowa, a team like Iowa, and I know that's your arch nemesis over there, and I know I'm wearing a Tom Osborne shirt. So, I mean, this is pretty much like,
shirt, though. Love it.
Blasphemy at this point. But I mean, how many times does Iowa or Wisconsin do they have these kids that there's no way they're as talented, as anybody else out there, but They just have played a ton of football, and they're just very, very fundamentally sound, in the game. But I think, and we've talked about this. My biggest hang up with Colorado is they have to get the line of scrimmage figured out on both sides. They've got a ton of great athletes, but kind of like, if we can kind of throw this to the NFL for just a second, there was a debate a couple years back when it was Joe Burrow's, I think, second year, and they had the option to go after Penei Sewell or Jamar Chase, and they ended up taking Chase, and it worked out. They figured it out, but you almost wonder, as banged up as Joe Burrow has been at times, should they have tried to go after and get an offensive lineman in there. And that's Deion said that too, like, to compete with Bama's and some of these top tier programs, like, he needs to get, the lines of scrimmage kind of figured out. And that, to me, that's where you're going to kind of see, some of those pieces from that 1-11 team kind of probably still be in there. I'll just kind of throw it over to where I'm at with it. Chris, my record prediction for them, and I'll kind of pull their schedule up here. I got them going 5-7.
Right.
I haven't. I think they can beat TCU, so that's a win.
See that is where I'm going to differ. I actually think TCU beats them. I do, just because it's at TCU. I believe it's is it right? Yeah, at TCU there. But yeah, I think that game is a lot closer than expected, though. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I think that game is going to come down to the wire. The first game, you know how it is, Christian. Yeah. Kids haven't played for months. You know what I mean? New team. Colorado's got a new coach. TCU's lost a lot of guys. I think that game, I'm with you. Could Colorado win that game? Oh, absolutely. But I will say that I think TCU gets that one. But go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I think they beat TCU. It's a coin flip game, right? So let's just say they beat TCU in that game. They lose to Nebraska. They beat Colorado State, and then that's when they start getting into the bulk of that schedule. Right. I think they lose at Oregon. I think Oregon's
going to be solid this year, dude. They're going to be solid. Bo Nix is back. Yep.
They're building something over there at Eugene, and I like it. I think they lose at USC.
I agree.
Arizona State and Stanford both have new coaches. Let's say they split one there, so that's a third win. They pull one out somewhere in there. UCLA's quietly been rebuilding with Chip Kelly. I like them in that game. So we're at 3 wins right now. Oregon State, call me crazy.
State, bro. They're beating Oregon
State. I think they can beat Oregon State, and then I'll give them Arizona too.
Washington State, man, is a little tough though, dude. If you're looking at that one, they're kind of scary just the way they run their offense there.
They run that Mike Leach air raid offense. I think is what they're running. So
yeah, I
don't know. I think between Washington State and Utah, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm not locked in at 5-7. They may pull off a little bit here. They may go 6-5.
Okay,
6-6.
So you're basically on board with me on this, though. You know what I mean? We're in the same ballpark. I said 6-6 or 7-5, whatever, right in there. I do think Utah beats them. I believe Utah's the back-to-back defending Pac-12 champs. They play some pretty solid football. I can't believe I'm saying that about Pac-12 team, but they play kind of some smash mouth over there. But I'm right on board with you, though. We're off a game or two. Okay. I just think we're on a national landscape. I think they're kind of back. I think there's going to be a ton of hype all year around them, just in the landscape of college football. And with Deion, his kid, those guys, some of those recruits he's bringing over, I think they're going to make some noise.
So let me ask you this then. You bring up a good question. Then, you think they'll have a winning season. I think they may. Yeah, I think they might have a 500 season this year, or. They may go to a bowl game. If they make it to a bowl game this first year, I think that's a pretty good first year for Deion.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this. So how long do you think until they're competing at, the national level? Because this year I don't think they'll be competing at that. But, how long until they're competing at a national level?
Good question. Again, they went 1-11 last year. 6-6, they make a bowl game. That's a win in anybody's book. Hell, I'm a Nebraska fan and I want a damn bowl game. We haven't had one in 4 years. So, how many years? Here's the thing, Christian. I'm gonna kind of throw this out here. I don't think this is Deion's last end-all be-all spot in college football. You know what I mean? I find it odd that he went to Colorado, honestly, after some of the offers. I know there's teams were throwing a lot of money out there to get him, right? I know when he first even said he was going to be a college football coach a couple years ago, Florida State offered him a lot. That's what his alma mater. And I hate Colorado, but on a national landscape, are you saying, I guess my question back to you is, are you talking competing for a Pac-12 title? Is that what you're saying? Being relative or relevant, I should say.
Yeah. We'll say that. We'll say competing for a Pac-12 title. I like that.
I say it's a couple years. I think they're a couple years out with him being there. It is the Pac-12. I think Oregon is obviously always up there. As long as Lincoln Riley's at USC, they are going to be up there. USC is the predominant powerhouse. Everybody thinks Pac-12, they think USC. So when he's competing at those guys' level, yeah, then he's got a shot every year. But I mean, that's hypothetically speaking. So it's going to be a couple years though. You don't take a 1-11 team and turn around and go 11-1 unless you're Scott Frost at a non-Power 5 conference. So I won't even get into that. But yeah, I think it's a couple years for Deion and I think he'll stick it out till then. I really do. I think his son's only a sophomore, or is he a junior? I don't even know. But
I think he's a sophomore. Yeah,
I think he is a sophomore. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, a couple years. I'll say a couple years. What about you?
That's a great question. I think, oh man. Okay. So you got to look at like the landscape of where I think college football's heading. I mean, aren't they expanding in 2025, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, they are. Good point.
That's when they're expanding. So I think this year, they're going to figure some stuff out. If they have a winning season and they go to a bowl game, great. But I think, as young as they are and how he's going to continue to build that place up, I think they're competing for a Pac-12 championship year 2, and they're probably, in a top 15 spot, you know what I mean, pushing to get into the playoffs by year 3. And this is one of the hot takes I have. And, we're going to start adding some hot take segments into this thing, too. But I think Deion Sanders, a couple years from now, I think he ends up back at Florida State, his alma mater.
That's where I was going with my take earlier there. I truly do. I truly do.
I mean, you put Deion Sanders, at Florida State, I mean, he can recruit the South like nobody else. I mean, he's the Pied Piper of talent down there in Florida. Yep. And you put him back at his alma mater, and seriously, you fly up to, he starts having winning seasons and competing for Pac-12 championships and getting them back to being relevant. If you're a Florida State, booster or whatever have you, president of the university or athletic director, you fly out to Boulder, Colorado, you back a Brinks truck up and you hand him a blank check. That's all you got to do. Just hand him a blank check, say, write whatever you want and come back home.
I agreed 100%, dude. And that guy, I don't follow him, but I mean, just as much as what I hear him talk and I listen to him, kids love him, dude. The modern day kid, you know what I mean? College, high school kid, dude, loves this guy. You know what I mean? We all grew up watching Deion. This guy, he's primetime, dude. I mean, that's what he is. You know what I mean? You say his name, kids gravitate, dude. People gravitate, dude. He was that way when he played in the NFL, played in college. So, no, I agree with you 100%. I think he's out in a few years, if everything goes well. And, yeah, he'll be at Florida State, dude. You know it as well as I do. That's where, let's be honest, look at a lot of the successful coaches in college football right now pretty much are coaching at their alma mater for the most part.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem to me. I don't know. I think for everybody else, it doesn't seem like a marriage. You know what I mean? It just seems like kind of an awkward fit, kind of for him there at Colorado. And that's not saying anything bad or negative about Deion at all. I mean, I actually really like Deion. I mean, back in the day, people don't know this, but my mom was a Falcons cheerleader back in the day when they drafted Deion, and I mean, it was crazy. I mean, they, everywhere he went, they'd have a decoy limousine, you know what I mean? That would take off and the paparazzi would follow it around and then Deion would get in his car and, so I mean, he's an electric guy, so I don't think it matters where he's at so much as it just matters where he wants to go. And I think Deion ultimately has a plan. I think he's got it all mapped out and he can kind of do what he wants there. So
Okay.
Yeah, so let's jump into this here, Chris. This
Yeah.
is something else we'd kind of talked about too, and that is
Ah,
Alabama. We kind of touched on that in the last episode, but let me ask you this. I know you have one side of it here. You have a take. I have a take. What are your thoughts on how Alabama does this year?
okay. I know that you're gonna throw a bunch of stats at me. And I know you're a Georgia fan, diehard, grew up there, right? Um, you guys hate Bama. Um, I am not from the SEC. I am not a Nick Saban fan. I could get into that someday and tell you why I don't like the guy, and it's not because what most people dislike about him. But um, I think Bama. I think Bama makes the playoffs again. I truly do. I think it pissed off Saban last year. I watched your boy David Pollock on College Game Day, sitting right next to him, hyping up, said Georgia's new Alabama right in front of him. I think Nick Saban made a look at him like, I don't know. Saban, I will say this about the guy, arguably the greatest coach ever in college football. What he has done the last 15 years at Alabama is insane to me with the transfer portal, all the stuff going on. The guy's amazing. I mean, he can coach. Now, he's had great coaches. Yes, he's had great players, but he started that whole thing. He came from LSU, actually started at Michigan State, I believe, or whatever. Or he actually was in the NFL, went to Michigan State, was a successful coach. I remember when 95, we kicked his ass at Michigan State, Nebraska did. Gets his way over to LSU, gets a national title, goes to my Dolphins, runs them in the ground, quits. He goes to Alabama, and that's how Alabama started, right? So this year for me, I do think they're back in the playoff. I don't know what their record is, and I don't think you not get in with more than one loss, but I think he gets there. I know you're going to throw all these crazy stats. I know players have left. It might be the downfall. I could be totally wrong on this, but I still think he's got a couple years left in that guy to get himself either competing for another national title or gets one. I truly do. Give me your take, Christian. What do you got, man?
Yeah, I think, first of all, it's insulting that you would say that I would throw stats out there and not continue to throw passes, but, here's the reality of the situation. You're absolutely right. You are absolutely motherfucking right. Alabama ranks 125th, okay, in returning production. I forgot, which website I pulled this off of, but it was one of those websites where they go through and they look at all the returning production and everything like that. Granted, who they do have coming back, still pretty talented. I'm not going to deny them that. They signed the number one recruiting class this year. But it takes time. We talked about it a little bit, I think, with the previous segment, we were talking about Colorado. You can have the most talented, team out there. You could recruit all-stars. I mean, look at what Ohio State does. The thing is you have to have some experience to kind of go along with that. Alabama lost massive amounts of talent and production this year, to include their quarterback. They got to figure out the quarterback position. They lost, pretty much. They lost, I think it was, yeah, I mean, pretty much at every level on their defense, they lost somebody too.
Yep.
They lost, Eli Ricks, who was a cornerback for him, if I'm not mistaken. They lost Will Anderson. They lost Henry To'oTo'o, who's their middle linebacker back there. I think it was DJ Turner. I think he's going, if I'm not mistaken, who's a defensive tackle for him, or Dallas Turner. Maybe I got that wrong there, but yeah. So they're losing all kinds of players back there, and I think they're losing one of their safeties too, if I'm not mistaken. So they're losing a lot.
Side of the ball is going to be rough, bro, for them.
But
they lost a ton of experience back there.
Offense is going to be a little rough too. They lost Jahmyr Gibbs, who was one of their best running backs last year. They lost, oh my God, I mean, a lot, like I think 3 or 4 of their wide receivers transferred out, if I'm not mistaken.
And that, to me, and I want to ask you a question off of this.
Yeah.
Last year watching Bama, and I watched a lot of Bama last how many years now, they've always had great receivers. Jamison Williams, Jerry Jeudy, you go through that crazy class, Henry Ruggs and all those guys, right? And Jalen Waddle and all those dudes. They've kind of been wide receiver competing with Ohio State most years on that. And last year, they really didn't have anybody. I mean, John Mechie was another guy from the year before, but tore his ACLs with the Lions now, I think, or Texas now. Yeah. But, I mean, they don't have – last year was really weak, in my opinion, for what they had for receivers. And I kind of wonder why the guys that they did have in there, why do you think they transferred? I mean, I'm really surprised by that because they've been really dominant at wide receiver the last 5 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think, here, and I've kind of said this for a little bit now. I think part of it is this is an off season where if you're grading Alabama in an off season standpoint, normally Alabama gets the best coaches. They get the best players, they get
For
everybody they
sure.
want. I have said this, and we'll get into this later on, in a further podcast on it. But I think, a lot of the NCAA ruling and the Supreme Court coming down and allowing kids to get paid, I think the reason why the NCAA just kind of threw their hands up, and they've been one of the most strict
Oh,
organizations as
for
far
sure.
as controlling what happens in their sport, bar none. I mean, it's everybody else. The UFC and USADA are child's play compared to what the NCAA does normally. So for them to just kind of say, "Yeah, pay them whatever you want. We don't really care. Transfer as much as you want." I think that was all put in place because they realize it's bad for business to have Alabama win the national championship every year or every other year, right? It's bad for business to have Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and I hate to say
Right
it,
there. Yeah.
Georgia, at the top, trying to compete this. So I think this is why they're starting to realize, hey, if we start kind of getting some of those traditional blue blood programs back in and breaking this monopoly up, then we'll kind of do it. Because I mean, don't get me wrong, Alabama's got some deep pockets because of the football team, but you're not competing with Texas or USC or hell, even Nebraska. I mean, you get some people that are desperate enough out here, and you know what I mean. They will
Oh,
spend top dollar to get anything they can. So
for
I
sure.
I, I think for me, part of the reason why is they know, the other side of it too is, who is it? That kid Jalen Milroll is kind of expected to kind of be the next guy there for him.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, he can throw it, but he's more of an athlete. I think they're
He,
going to have to train. They're going to change the offense up a little bit with him.
that dude can run. That guy's built like a brick shit house, by the way. Holy shit. If you've seen him play at all. Yeah, no,
He's
and not to interject too much here, but yeah, I'm with you, man. They have a lot of changes. I'm just saying the guy at the top, Nick Saban, man. A lot of people argued last year, should have they have been in that playoff? I know they had 2 losses. I know they should have, what was it, Tennessee and I believe LSU, right? LSU for sure. It was Tennessee and LSU.
yeah,
I they weren't that far behind. I think I just knowing Bama the way that what I've seen from Nick Saban, man, I think they're going to be right in that hunt again. Um, that's where I'm at. I know we got a little bit. You have that's a really good take there, or stat 125th or 125th. Yeah, that's rough. How many college football teams are there, man? I mean, that's
they're
you're in the
expanded
back
it
of
now. I
that.
think there's like 130, something like that
Yeah.
now.
I mean, you're way in the back there with that. That's amazing stat. It is, but Alabama wasn't that impressive at times last year either, from what I saw, especially from the wide receiver production area. Rough. Defense didn't play. God, they looked like shit most of those games, dude. LSU, Tennessee put a lot of points up on those defenses. And Nick Saban, I know, is one of those guys that doesn't stand for that shit. You know what I mean? He's always had usually solid defenses there, especially bend don't break defenses. You know what I mean? You might be able to throw it on them between the 20s, but boy, it's tough to score on them in the red zone usually. So
Yeah,
that's where I'm at. So I'll leave it at that with that. But I do like your take though. You're exactly right, and I appreciate you explaining why the receiver core is just, to me, I can't believe guys are transferring out of Alabama. That's amazing to me. It used to be the other way around. Everybody wanted to
yeah.
go there.
And I think, their offensive line didn't look super great last year at times, and they've lost
Mhm.
one of their best offensive line. A couple of offensive linemen have left there too. So it's
Right.
just not good. Really, and I'll say this, and we'll kind of look to finish it up on this. This is the other side of what's kind of got me concerned about Bama. Again, in another episode, we'll do a record prediction for them and everything like that, and maybe look to go a little further into this. But, you know, they did bring in 2 new coordinators this year. And this is what I mean when I said they didn't have a typical Bama off season. They wanted, who they really wanted, if I'm not mistaken, was Jeremy Pruitt,
Yep.
former
Yep.
Tennessee coach, former
Yep.
defensive coordinator with them after Kirby left.
Yep.
And then that was their defensive coordinator. And they wanted to bring in, I think it was Cliff Kingsbury was who
It
they were high
was.
on.
It was.
If they would have
Yep.
gotten both of them, then, oh my God, that would have been reloaded. And I would have been like, hey, look, forget, Cliff Kingsbury can coach offense, at this level. I know he can, and he could do an elite job at it. And I know Jeremy Pruitt, as much as people want to say, hey, he supported McDonald's and gave players money in the bags, hey, allegedly, right? Allegedly, we have to say, I can't confirm that, but that was who they ultimately wanted. Instead, they bring in Tommy Reese as the offensive coordinator, who was at Notre Dame, and Kevin Steele, who was at Miami last year. And they ranked respectfully 60th in total offense and 65th in total defense.
Right in the
You
middle.
know, and yeah, I mean, just really right in the middle, very average, and you think about, okay, you pair the loss of production, yes, you've got a lot of talent, but Miami had, a lot of talent arguably last year too. They were a very young team, and they're in a conference that, if you want me to be honest, if I'm ranking, how they should have stacked up, there's no reason why they shouldn't have finished outside of the top 25 in defense in the ACC.
We could have a whole podcast on Miami easily. Seriously, with what they got down
there. We will. But and you look at, Notre Dame and Tommy Rees, and yeah, you can make the argument on one side of it. Well, he had a quarterback who was really young and he got hurt, if I'm not mistaken. So then they had to figure it out there. And, still at this level, it doesn't matter. It's next man up. You've got to be able to recruit, especially if you're Notre Dame. You've been a fringe playoff team, for how many years now? They've supposed to have been, this kind of great team there. And for them to be ranked 60th in total offense, this is all just really lining up to kind of be, concerning. Now, I think you make the other argument. Well, who do they go get if they didn't get Kingsbury and they didn't get Pruitt? You know what I mean? Who else do you go to replace him? And that's a great question. I mean, there's a lot of names out there. It's Bama. You would think, okay, they could probably, do something, but I don't know.
No, I agree. I mean, and you bring up a good point. And with this stat, they were dead right in the middle, average, but I just don't see Bama being like that this coming year. I just don't. I don't. Those guys still get players, man. And behind every great player is a great coach, man. And whether it's your defensive line coach, your offensive line coach, you name it. And Bama, like you said, probably has the best coaching staff almost every freaking year in college football. They get guys all the time. And those guys like Kirby Smart leave and they go to Georgia and kick some ass. So I think that Bama's going to be okay. I do. And I actually think that last year's team, I think they got better at the end of the year. I truly do, even though with the couple losses they had. And if you watched any of those games, I mean, it was amazing as a person that was rooting against Nick Saban to watch those teams win, Tennessee and LSU. But I truly think that in my heart, I hate saying this, but I feel Bama is going to be, are they going to be the Bama that we saw the last, 10 years and dominate a decade? No. But I think they're still going to be there with Georgia. I think LSU, in my opinion, I think is going to have a good season this year. I could talk about them a little bit. I'm not going to do that now, but that's another team I kind of like under Brian Kelly, another guy I don't personally care for, but they got a lot of pieces back. I think they overdid it last year. I mean, I thought they looked a lot better than what a lot of people thought they were going to finish last year. So like in Tennessee's in that conference or over there too. So it's going to be tough for Bama. Yes. But I truly don't, I'm not going to write them off. I guess I don't want to go bold prediction on like a record or anything yet, but I think Bama's going to be right there in that hunt again. I do. I can't write them off yet.
So you don't have to give me a record prediction. Let's just make this really simple. Okay. Do they finish at the top of the SEC, in the middle, or at the bottom?
At the top. At the top being what you consider the top. You mean number one over there, or do you mean like top 2, 3? What was your what was
I okay, let's say, again, just for this, do they go to the SEC championship game?
Man, you can get into that playoff without going to that thing, but it's tough. I do. That's a bold take. I do. I'll put my foot in the ground.
All right. We'll put some bets on that. You know what I mean? Again, this is where we draw the line in the sand. This is where we differ, slightly. I think they just miss out. Again, you got to think everything's relative. A bad season, and we're talking like this, you know what I mean? And it's kind of like my Nebraska take. Like I'm talking like they're going to go undefeated or something, and then I throw out 8-4. Right. I think a bad season for Alabama, in my opinion, is if you have 3 losses, 3 or 4 losses. You're in
say that to most programs, though, dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would think as a Nebraska fan, a 3-loss season would be like me winning the national championship right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I don't know. I think for me, they finished just outside of the top, somewhere between the, I guess, and this is kind of unfair, but I feel like they're going to finish not at the top, but also not in the middle of the pack either. That just seems way too low for me, and unless Vanderbilt starts recruiting, me to go play quarterback, and be, the hefty righty.
Will Levis did leave Kentucky. He's going to the NFL. Jared Lorenzen. I don't know, man.
I'm just saying, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, they're searching for some quarterbacks, and by God, I got 4 years of eligibility.
Christian Hunt, baby.
2023 Heisman.
Next Jamarcus Russell. There we go.
Dang right, bro. Light skinned Jamarcus Russell over here. Listen, speaking of the Heisman Trophy, I want to kind of get into this, and this is a segment that I really like, and I know you've looked forward to talking about this for a little bit since I sent it to you.
Yep.
What do you think? Hot take. USC quarterback Caleb Williams falls well short of a second Heisman campaign.
Absolutely. That's it. That's all I got to say. He does. Absolutely. He will not win a back-to-back. I actually don't even think he finishes top 3.
Yeah. I don't think so either. I think he finishes probably 6th, 7th in there.
Correct.
I don't know why. Call me crazy. I just have this weird feeling that USC, and that's just, I'm not trying to bag on Lincoln Riley, but I feel like in years where he really has all these pieces together, they always lose like 2 or 3 games, don't they? Absolutely. They always kind of fold a little bit. Just these weird games.
Absolutely. In the Heisman Trophy, the way they do it the last few years now, it used to always be the best player on the best team. You know what I mean? For years, it usually was, until kind of RG3 kind of set that example with Baylor when he had that. I think they went like 8-4 and he won it. It was kind of a weak year. Kind of changed a little bit of the mold for that. Bryce Young won it, a couple years ago as a freshman, which was pretty impressive. He did have a crazy good year that year, but I'm not a huge Caleb Williams fan, though. And maybe that is playing into my personal outlook on this. I think the kid is talented, yes. I also think he plays against piss poor competition. I didn't think he played that well in that Pac-10 or Pac-12 title game. But last year was kind of a weak Heisman, in my opinion. So I like a guy, like I could see a guy like, what is it? Is it Drake May? Is he in there? There he is. And yeah, he's a second on your list there. From UNC, man, had a crazy good year. Kid puts up crazy stats though. Which is obviously part of the Heisman too. I do have some kind of, I have some wild cards I could throw out there though, that I think guys that are, I see Jeff Sims from Nebraska plus, wow. I haven't seen that yet. Anyway, I have a couple guys that I think that could be in that race, but I to answer your question, no, I don't think he finishes top 3 or 4. No, I don't. What about you?
No, I think he finishes again. I think he'll be lucky to even get anywhere near top 5 in this. I think there's too many names I like on there. I like Bo Nix. I mean, Bo Nix, look, he's been around college football forever. He's going and he downgraded to go from the SEC to the Pac-12. And people have been super
last year, did he not? I mean, he played pretty well.
I think he did. Yeah, he's one of those guys too. I mean, if you can put the team around him, and Auburn's kind of struggled the last couple of years to fill the competitive team in that SEC. So I can't put everything on Bo Nix. But and I like what Dan Lanning, he was Georgia's defensive coordinator. I like what he's doing over there, at Oregon. I'm telling you right now, this could be.
I think that's my, not to interrupt you, but I did interrupt you, but I think that's who wins the Pac-12 next year. I don't know if that's a hot take, but I do think Oregon wins that next year. What about you?
Yeah.
Give me a hot take on that right now. Just off the rip.
Who wins the Pac-12?
Yep.
I'd go on that. I think. Ooh, hold on one second. I think Utah. Utah three-peats it. Yeah, they're returning a ton of production. They've got Cam Rising. He's the fact that is he even on this list? I don't think he is.
No, he's not, and he is a tough son of a bitch, dude. And I love watching that kid play, man. I truly do. When I get to watch those late games, I love watching that kid play, man. He's a tough kid. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Jalen Hurts, man. He's just a tough dude. You know what I mean? And wills his team to win, man. Nobody ever thinks of Utah in the college landscape, man. But I do love – they kind of play like they play a little bit of a – which is why I think they keep winning over there is they play a little bit of a Big Ten style of offense, They're a little more smash mouth, mean, run the football at you, play really good defense. So not to, like I said, I interjected you there, but like that's a good take though. But I do mine's going to be Oregon this year. I am going to take them. You kind of brought them up there for me, but
yeah, no, I think you're right. As far as don't worry about interjecting on me, you know what I mean? Because I'm going to interject on you when I beat you in the 40-yard dash. Coming up in a couple of months. I mean, by God, we'll give you training updates too. Try to give you bi-weekly. No, I think here's really what I think too with this. I think it's an interesting lineup with this. I mean, this is the Heisman odds according to SportsIllustrated.com. I mean, they've got Caleb Williams plus 350. Another name here too, and you kind of had said it. They got
Yes.
Brock Vandergriff over at Georgia, so they've got this kid winning and somehow going on a roll to win the Heisman over a guy Carson Beck.
Is he? I mean, you're way more involved in the Georgia landscape than I am. I mean, is he for sure their starter then? Like he's already won the job? Just I don't know much about this kid, Christian. I mean, enlighten me, buddy.
Carson Beck or Brock Vandergriff?
Vandergriff.
I don't think so. They're from everything I've seen, and I don't know. Again, it could all. I don't think he is. I think Carson Beck, who is a lower rated guy. Again, we talk about all this time. Stars don't mean shit when you've been in college for a couple of years. I mean, it really doesn't. You saw that with Stetson Bennett, who was a freaking walk on, right? I mean, that guy's going to be delivering packages at UPS this year. And try and, where I'm going with that. But anyways, yeah, I think, Brock Vandergriff, again, his big knock was, and he's a great quarterback. Like, don't get me wrong. He lit it up in high school. The biggest knock against him, though, was the competition. He actually played in the same, when I played quarterback, and this was a decade ago now, probably more than a decade. When I played quarterback down there in Georgia, it was, oh Lord, I can't even remember the conference, but I played at a Christian school down there at Georgia. It's competitive. Like, don't get me wrong, but he also played kind of in that same league down there. And so I know the people he was playing against were not the same competition. It's kind of an Arch Manning sort of thing there where you're kind of like, how's he going to do?
Are you saying that you played in some soft competition then?
Hey, look, I can't say that I played in some soft competition. Okay. All I'm saying is when the average annual tuition is north of $10,000, you're going to you're probably not going to get the cream of the crop athletes out there. Right.
I agree.
I'm just throwing it out there, yeah, I mean, kids were pulling up in the parking lot in Mercedes-Benz, you know what I mean? And then I transferred to a public school and I had to take the bus. So, I had to learn real quick, by God. I sound like one of those Canadian, or British people talking about like growing up in the streets, I'll wet you. That's what they say, right? So I don't know. But here's my whole thing on it. I think, when we talk about all this and we're kind of getting away from Caleb Williams here, but I think Brock Vandergriff, he has a shot to win the job. But I think everything we saw last year, I think they're a lot higher on Carson Beck for what he can do.
That was kind of the name I was thinking of. Yeah, was him. I was like, man, I was surprised to see that kid up there on this list.
Let's do this. I want to throw this back to Caleb Williams for a second. I just want to read his stats from last year. I mean, he had a hell of a season.
He did.
Passing the football, he was 66%. Actually, I don't want to read that. It's 3 6s. So for his completion percentage, let's go. But he had 4,537 yards throwing the football. He had 42 touchdowns. Okay. 42 touchdowns throwing the football. He had 382 yards running or rushing with 10 touchdowns there. So, and that was all against 5 interceptions. I mean, the kid's actually been pretty good. When you look at his stats, from year in and year out, he doesn't throw a ton of interceptions. So it's just, I think him and Lincoln Riley, they just have that same issue of when they get in these big games, I think they get let down by either defense or just those weird sort of plays,
Yeah, no, I agree. And I've been hard on the kid. I didn't like him at Oklahoma, just personally. So here, I probably sound like I'm a fucking hater on this podcast all the times I say hate, but no, he's a hell of an athlete back there, man. He is a damn good player. Here's my thing. No, I keep saying this. I'm not a fan of Pac-12 play as far as a whole. I don't think there's any defenses out there for the most part, other than maybe Utah, Stanford back in the day, USC obviously way back in the day. But I mean, you know what I mean? Like I stick Stetson Bennett in this conference, bro. I mean, he tore it up in the SEC for a guy who's a walk-on, right? A guy that Stetson Bennett, by the way, God, that guy can run the football, by the way. I thought that was just amazing. I think a lot of people wrote him off as an athlete. He's a pretty damn good athlete. Surprised me last year. But like I guess I have this thing with like Pac-12 guys. There hasn't been a lot of Pac-12 guys to win the Heisman recently. I mean, unless you want to go back to like Reggie Bush. I think Marcus Mariota might have been the last one. Am I wrong on this with Oregon? He might have been the last Pac-12 guy to win one on that Oregon team. Yep. And they played Auburn, got their ass kicked by Cam Newton or whatever. But I mean, as far as Caleb Williams goes, do I think he's going to have like crazy stats? Absolutely. I think he's going to be nuts, but I just don't think he finishes that high. And like you brought up a good point, big games, Lincoln Riley's just hasn't shown to me. I mean, I think he's a good coach. I think he can recruit, all those good things, but I don't see them, USC as a whole, or Caleb Williams being as successful as like most people are putting them up there. I mean, I've seen a lot of things, USC win a national title this coming year. I've seen a lot of stuff on that. So if they do that, yeah, then he probably will. I mean, there's only been one guy to ever win 2 Heismans, I believe. So not going to happen. So I just don't see it happen. I don't even see him coming close, to be honest with you. My take.
Yeah, and there's 2 things I think that really helped him last year that aren't going to be there, and that's Jordan Addison, he's going to be one of the best wide receiver prospects to come out of college in a long time.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, he reminds me, he's got that Jordan Jefferson kind of dog in him, man. I mean, he can bail you out, at the wide receiver position.
He can, and he's not even a USC kid. I believe he played at Pitt for most of his time, and then transferred over there last year, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I do like him. I think he'll be the probably the first receiver off the board in the draft this year for sure.
The other issue that they're going to run into is, again, I've always said this, I don't know why, but I've always kind of said this, and college football is sort of rotating away from this. I think, it's about throwing the ball and being able to kind of run this RPO style offense now. Yeah. I still think there's a place for the running game there. They lost Travis Dye, who was transferred in from Oregon last year, and I think he's going to have a great future in the NFL again. But they lost a lot of production there.
I agree. I got a question for you, bro.
All right.
Let's maybe another bet here. It'd be a crazy bet if we both hit it. Who's your dark horse to win the Heisman right now?
Who's my dark horse to win the Heisman? Yep. So we're talking about somebody on the list that's not.
Yeah, on the list, or even that's not on the list. I got a guy, and he is back. I'm not going to tell you until you say your name, but
man, you're putting me on the spot here.
I did. I gotta call you out when needed, bro.
Okay. All right. I got one for you as a dark horse. Okay. I got one for a dark horse here. Dillon Gabriel, Oklahoma.
Ooh. Okay. I like that take. I watched him play in person last year.
Yeah. So
Yep. I've seen him, dude. He can play.
Yeah, that kid can play. I think he had, he was at UCF, started off, and he had, he had probably at least 8,000 yards. It was north of 8,000 yards before he ever got to Oklahoma.
Yep.
I mean,
he's an athlete back there. He can throw the ball. Oklahoma they were bad last year. Under a new coach, give them a little time. I think Oklahoma is still pretty relevant. So I love that. By the way, amazing take. I did not think you were going that route. I am going to go with a guy who I think has been overlooked. He didn't declare for the draft this year. Michigan running back Blake Corum, dude. I know running backs never win the Heisman, man, but I think this kid, dude, in that smash mouth style, hardball style fucking offense, I think he's going to have some big ass numbers this year. And even their backup who played in the playoffs is a fucking stud too. But I think he's got a chance, dude. I truly do.
Yeah, I like that too. I wanted to say Blake Corum, I really did. I wasn't sure because I know he's coming off of an injury, if I'm not mistaken. They've had a lot of banged up running backs, I think, over there at Michigan, and that kind of, I think, hurt them in the playoffs because they had to deviate a lot from what they wanted to do, and they had to lean a lot more on JJ McCarthy. Yeah, I think, man, this is a tough one. Yeah, I could see Blake Corum doing it. The only problem is they have two, like you said, they have 2-3 really good running backs. Donovan Edwards is there.
There you go.
He's actually, from what I'm seeing here, yeah, he's ahead of Blake Corum. Blake Corum's not even, on this list that we're looking at.
So you know the story there though, right? Like it was I think it was 2-3 years ago. Edwards was the starter. Corum beat him out last season. And it had the monster year. I think he finished 6th or 7th in the Heisman. Corum did last year, I believe. He was right up there. He had crazy numbers. But he's a guy that I just was really impressed with the way he ran. And I know running backs don't win Heisman. It's super rare, but he's a guy for the dark horse that I would say, man, I got to put that kid right up there again. I will say this. I bet he finishes higher than your boy Williams there. How about that?
You know what? my boy Williams. Yeah. You mean Gabriel?
No. I'm going to say Caleb Williams.
Okay, Caleb Williams. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Hey, now let me ask you this real quick. Don't we know somebody that taught him? Like we mutually know somebody that taught him in high school, I think.
Who?
I can't say, I'm not gonna say their name on air, but I think we
Oh,
might know somebody. It's a family friend that, down
yeah.
there that,
You're not wrong.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because I remember, like, I know they taught somebody that went to Michigan, and then I remember, like, one day it popped up on, on Facebook, and I was like, oh,
Yeah,
shit,
you're right. You're
that
right.
they taught Blake Corum. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Good memory. Good memory there, Christian.
so,
You're
yeah. I
not
mean, we got
you're not
to,
the imbecile I thought you were. You're a smart
oh,
guy, bro.
hey, by God, you got to be able to process at this level. We're not just dinking and dunking trying to get, up here. It would be, oh Lord, what's that chicken place up here? Raising Cane's. Down
Yeah.
south, it's
Canes, baby.
Zaxby's or Chick-fil-A.
Yep.
So, I mean, from throwing interceptions and touchdowns to grabbing five pieces, chicken deals there. I mean, we do it all here at the I-80 Boys podcast.
We do. We do.
I think this is a good stopping point, unless you've got anything else to add, Chris. Or
I don't. I am looking forward to the combine. If you guys are watching this, write this shit down. I believe April 22nd, I believe, is our date. Christian's going to be slimming down to about 210, 215 by then. So you will be seeing the white Jamarcus Russell out there running a 40, not the current guy you're looking at in the screen right now.
absolutely, when he says 210, 215, he means per quad. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be. Again, I'm trying to cultivate some mass. I'm trying to bulk. Really, is the strategy there. I'm trying to go the opposite way. I want to be on my 600-pound life, and I want to break a record for lean body mass, and see if I can do that.
No other. God, I just picture you. You say 600-pound life, and I picture some guy like that with his shirt off trying to run a 40, and anyway.
Bro, I'll pull up to wherever we run this 40 with a scooter if I go that way. You know what I mean? I'll still beat you.
You might, dude. I haven't timed it yet, but I've been telling every one of my buddies, the kids at home, I'm like, dude, I gotta practice for this shit. They're all laughing at me. They think I'm slow as fuck anymore. So I'm gonna have to work on this a little bit. But to answer your question, no, I don't have anything else, man. I think it was a really good podcast here, man. I love the topics tonight. So I thought we had some really interesting takes on everything here. So yeah, I'll kick it over to you here. I have nothing else left, bro.
Yeah, guys, we'll be back this weekend. We're going to try to do an episode, hopefully get it out on Sunday. Be sure to check us out on social media. We're at Twitter at I-80 Boys. We're on Facebook, and everything like that as well. Again, please like, comment, and subscribe. That really helps us out. The other thing too is, guys, at the bottom of this video, do us a favor. At the bottom of this video, I want you to comment the over/under on beers consumed on the weekend podcast. Help us out.
Yes.
And let's figure out who it is. I'll write a number down, you write a number down, and we'll figure this out.
Yeah, dude. If somebody hits the exact number, I will send you a case of whatever you're drinking or whatever you want to drink. How about that?
Well, there we go. But we'll see you guys this weekend. And as always, I-80 Boys out.
We'll see you, Christian. Take care, brother.
All right, you too, Bob.